My friends, have you ever thought about how deeply God is involved in the smallest details of your life? Nothing escapes His sight, not even the hidden prayers whispered in the quiet of the night. Sometimes while you're asleep, someone else is awake crying out to heaven on your behalf. You may not even know their name. You may not even realize that a prayer has been spoken over you, but heaven knows. And today I want to share with you a shocking truth. Someone has asked God to marry you, and that prayer has reached the throne of grace. When we speak of value, most people look to the world to measure it. They search for validation through appearance, success, money, or the approval of others. But heaven measures value differently. The truth that someone has prayed for you to be their husband or wife is not just about romance. It is a powerful reminder that you are seen, desired, and cherished in ways you may not even realize. You are not invisible to God, and you are not overlooked by those He has placed in your story. Think for a moment about what it means for another human being to bow their head, close their eyes, and whisper your name before the throne of the Almighty. That is not casual. That is not ordinary. That is a testimony that your life carries weight, that your existence holds meaning beyond what you may think of yourself. Often we walk through life feeling unworthy, feeling like no one truly cares, or that our past mistakes make us unlovable. But the very act of someone praying to God for you to be joined with them in marriage shows that you are valuable enough to be entrusted to God's care. This is important because the world has a way of convincing us otherwise. People will reject you, abandon you, or treat you as if your presence doesn't matter. Words may have been spoken over your life that made you feel like you're not good enough. Some of you may have been told you're too broken, too complicated, too much of a burden. Yet even in the face of rejection, there is evidence in heaven that someone believed you were worth asking God for. That truth should awaken something in your soul. You are worth more than you know, and your value is not based on human opinion, but on divine truth. The scriptures remind us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, knit together in the secret place by the hands of a loving Creator. You were designed with purpose, not by accident. Every detail of your life, from your personality to your story, carries significance. When someone prays for you, they are affirming what God has already declared, that you are worth loving, worth waiting for, worth building a future with. They may not even realize the depth of what they're saying when they pray, but in that moment they are joining in agreement with heaven's eternal truth. You are precious. But there is more to this. Value does not just mean being wanted, it means being recognized as someone chosen by God for something greater. In the Bible, we see many moments where people felt small or overlooked until God revealed their true worth. David was a shepherd boy, ignored by his own family when the prophet came to anoint a king. Yet God saw him and chose him. Gideon called himself the least in his family, yet God called him a mighty warrior. In the same way, even if you feel forgotten, even if your life story seems insignificant, God uses the prayers of others to remind you of your value and to prepare you for His greater plan. And here is the shocking beauty. Someone's prayer is not just about them, it is also about you. It is heaven's way of pulling you into a bigger narrative. When you realize that someone has prayed for you, you should not simply think, oh, they want me. Instead, think, God is confirming that I am worth being prayed for. That realization should build confidence, not arrogance, but a humble assurance that you are treasured by God. So many people today walk with wounded hearts because they never feel chosen. They compare themselves to others, believing they will never measure up. But imagine the power of knowing that while you doubted your worth, someone else believed in it so strongly that they carried your name to God's throne. That kind of love is not shallow. It is not temporary. It is evidence that your value is undeniable. This does not mean you should base your entire worth on someone else's prayer. Your true value comes from God alone. But the fact that someone prayed for you is like a mirror reflecting what heaven already says about you. You are loved, you are worth pursuing, and your life has meaning. That prayer becomes a reminder that you are not forgotten, not unwanted, not cast aside. It whispers to your soul that you matter and that God has a purpose that no one can erase. Life is often viewed as a series of random events, encounters and choices that somehow bring us to where we are today. People call it coincidence, luck, or fate. But when you look through the lens of faith, you begin to see a greater truth. Nothing is random with God. Every detail is part of a carefully designed story written by the author of life himself. When someone prays for you to be their husband or wife, it is not just about human desire. It is a glimpse into a much larger narrative that heaven is orchestrating. Your life is not an isolated chapter. It is connected to a story that reaches far beyond what you can see. Think about the many times in Scripture where lives seem to collide in unexpected ways. Ruth, a widow from Moab, had no idea that following Naomi into Bethlehem would lead her to Boaz, a man who would not only redeem her life but also place her in the lineage of the Messiah. Esther was taken into a palace, not knowing that God was positioning her to save an entire nation. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and unjustly imprisoned. Yet every twist and turn was preparing him for a moment where he would save countless lives during famine. These were not accidents. They were threads woven into a divine tapestry. In the same way, your life is not moving aimlessly. God is weaving together people, circumstances, prayers, and moments that all connect to his greater purpose. The fact that someone has prayed to marry you could be one of those threads. It might be a part of the story God is writing not only in your life, but in theirs as well. You may not understand it now, and you may not even know who that person is, but every prayer that rises to heaven is gathered by God and woven into his plan. It is important to see relationships not just as personal choices, but as divine appointments. So many people miss the hand of God because they treat life as chance. But nothing about you is by chance. Where you were born, the gifts you carry, the struggles you have endured, even the people who come into your path, all of it is connected to a bigger picture. If someone has prayed to be joined to you, that prayer may be a piece of God's unfolding story that involves more than just two people. It could affect families, communities, and generations to come. Marriage itself is not only about two individuals finding happiness, it is about legacy, covenant, and purpose. Two lives joined together by God can accomplish far more than they ever could alone. When you understand this, you begin to see how one prayer could be the spark that ignites a story far greater than romance. That prayer could be aligning with God's eternal plan, a plan that may one day touch the lives of people you haven't even met yet. Too often we limit our vision to the present moment. We think about what makes us comfortable now, what satisfies us in this season, but God sees the end from the beginning. He writes stories that stretch into eternity. The people you meet, the ones who cross your path, the prayers spoken over you, none of it is meaningless. It all ties into a larger narrative that heaven has already recorded. Sometimes the story includes delays, waiting, or even heartbreak. You may wonder why God hasn't revealed everything at once, but every great story takes time to unfold. If Ruth had not endured loss, she would never have met Boaz. If Joseph had not been betrayed, he would never have reached Egypt and been placed in Pharaoh's court. The delays and struggles are not wasted. They are chapters in the story that prepare you for the moment when everything makes sense. So when you hear that someone has prayed for you, do not dismiss it as something small or insignificant. Instead, consider that it may be a glimpse of the story God is writing. It does not mean you must accept every prayer spoken about you, because discernment is necessary. But it does mean you should pay attention to how God might be moving, because sometimes his greatest works begin in secret places where prayers are whispered and tears are shed. Your life is bigger than you imagine. The people around you, the prayers spoken for you, and the path you are walking are all part of a story that heaven has been writing long before you were born. And the truth is, this story is not only about your happiness, it is about God's glory. When you begin to see your life through that lens, you realize that someone's prayer to marry you is not just about desire, it is about destiny, and destiny always connects to something greater than yourself. When we talk about prayer, we must understand that it is one of the most powerful forces in the universe, but it is also one of the most misunderstood. Prayer is not about bending God's will to match our desires. It is about aligning our desires with God's perfect will. When someone prays for you to be their husband or wife, it may feel flattering, emotional, or even overwhelming. Yet the deeper truth is this: no matter how passionate or sincere a prayer may be, God's answer will always flow out of his wisdom, his timing, and his plan. Many people mistake prayer as a guarantee, as if every word spoken in faith obligates God to respond with a yes. But Scripture teaches us something different. Jesus himself in the Garden of Gethsemane prayed with deep anguish, saying, "Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." Even the Son of God modeled that true prayer submits human desire under divine authority. This shows us that prayer is powerful, but it is not a tool to manipulate God. It is a channel to trust him. When someone prays about you, especially concerning marriage, it is a beautiful thing. It shows sincerity, longing, and hope. But it does not automatically mean that God has ordained you for that person. Prayer must always be filtered through discernment and guided by Scripture. Sometimes people pray out of loneliness, desperation, or even infatuation. Those emotions may be real, but they are not always in line with God's perfect plan. What feels right to a human heart may not be right in the eyes of God, because the Bible tells us plainly that the heart can be deceitful above all things. That is why every prayer must be weighed against God's truth. When someone prays for you, you must remember